Battle Creek, and welcome to this edition of Our View, the show that tries to capture Battle Creek's voice of poverty and how it's affected by statistics and myths and things that happen within Battle Creek. Today we're going to talk about a subject that's kind of interesting to all of us because for 18 years, we've been the Women's Co-op of Battle Creek, and we've advocated strongly for mothers and for women. And, fully understand the myths that go with that. According to census data, 80.4% of single parents, custodial parents, are mothers. So we weren't wrong in thinking that most of the time the mothers have the children. But we didn't really dig into why. We listened to the myths, right? So, for example, most black fathers are in prison or parenting multiple children is the myth. That's the statistic. That's not statistic, but that's the myth, right?
Yeah.
And that, most fathers in poverty just don't stick around. And in fact, most times it's a one-night stand. And this wasn't something that we couldn't back with our women. Like, we had women who had children, who had fathers who were incarcerated. We had moms who clearly admitted they weren't in a relationship. I'm not bashing anyone here because I also am a mother who has multiple children by multiple fathers. I have 3 children and none of them have the same father. So we know that there's something to this, but the thing that we most recently started looking at is what is the father's perspective in this, and it happened because I met my friend
Jamel Brooks,
aka who also goes by Left Field, which is what we're going to call him today because he favors that. So I met Left Field because you got sent to a parenting class with me. And in hearing your story, which I want you to be able to tell, but I was completely blown away by this fact. And I want you to be able to tell this, but something happened with your child who was in the care of the mother.
Yes.
You did not live in that home.
No, I did not.
And when this occurred, you kind of got a call saying, come to the emergency room. You got to the emergency room.
Yes.
You're met by all of this medical profession. You are beside yourself because your child's been very seriously injured.
Yes.
By the mom.
Yes.
Take us through that story.
Well, just being at my friend's house, just relaxing, getting away from the drama that I was going through with her. She was a really dramatic person, I'm not even going to try to bash her or anything, but she was still a wonderful person. But just being there, getting that call was kind of a awakening. I couldn't stop the tears or nothing. I'm like, what are you saying? They was like, yeah, well, he was put in the tub, boiling hot water, and if he would have stayed in there a lot longer, he might have not made it, but he's in critical care, and you need to come up here. So I rushed up there, couldn't hold my tears or nothing, but not being the actual father, they wouldn't let me all the way in.
Because you had never had the paternity test or been put on the birth certificate.
Yes.
And why was that? Were you and mom together when he was born? Did you not want to be on the birth certificate? Did she not let you?
She kind of didn't let me. It was she had somebody that called from prison, and she was really kind of like
wanting to hook up there. And I want to note for people who are viewing, the mother has that right. If I give birth to a child in the hospital, even if Left Field is there saying I'm the father and I want to sign on this birth certificate, you are not allowed to do that if I don't allow you to do that.
Exactly.
You have to move through the courts and do a paternity test before.
Yes, and that's what I had to do. And then, long story short, after all that happened, I had to be here. I had to go through all this
and what's interesting to me is that Left Field did nothing to hurt his child.
Nothing. I wasn't even there.
He did not know that the mother was going to hurt. It wasn't like the mother called and said, I'm about to hurt our child.
Yes.
Or he was there and he knew the mother was going to do something and he didn't call for help. Or,
right. I wasn't just
hey,
sitting
I
there
saw
like
the
I knew
mom
it was
that day.
happen.
She was erratic and crazy. I knew she might do something, but I didn't alert the authorities. There was none of that.
Exactly.
Left Field had no idea this was going to happen. It came from Left Field, right? No idea. But yet the system is still making Left Field take parenting classes and prove counseling, psych eval, and all these things to prove himself Now, we know we've been dealing with Children's Protective Services for 20 years now. When they get involved in a case, there's merit to that, and parents need to correct that action and sometimes get supportive services to be able to do that. But in the case of Left Field, he was not part of that case. What are they saying you did, Left Field?
They're saying that I willingly knew that I placed him with her care, knowing that she was a dangerous individual.
And you didn't know that?
No, come on now.
And they want to charge you with failure to protect.
Basically. But that's why I'm going through all this stuff, so I can clear my name. They said if I can go through all the things I'm doing, even taking medication, knowing that I'm gonna wake up a zombie, like just doing everything that they tell me to do, just to prove that I'm a rightful father, and I was there whenever she needed me to be there, and still, I just gotta go through it. I'm still going through it.
And what was interesting to me, too, is that oftentimes in these cases where children are removed from the mother, they're placed with the father. Even if father isn't given custody, children are placed there until mom can work through the system or the system can work through the best interest of the children. That was never offered to you, was it?
Well, I'm not in the great living situations because I'm bouncing from house to house because it's kind of like a restart. Because after leaving her, I had to restart everything because I put my whole investment into her, like, working, giving her all the money basically, just leaving me with some, just helping her with her car, the house, all that we had. And just leaving from there, I had to go back to my mom's place, which ain't a very good place, but it's still livable. But still, from there, I bounced back, and that's the reason why they didn't place him, because I don't have a substantial living situation.
But Left Field, I know you now.
Mm-hmm.
If I would have said to you as the system, Left Field, you can have your baby, but only if you have a stable place right now, that stable place would have happened the next day. Yeah.
If I had it.
How do you feel the system's treated you in all this?
Like I gotta go through trial. Like, all right, they don't know what connections I had with my son or like what type of bond we created or anything. They just want to know if I'm actually right in the head or something, because coming from that situation, they like, well, maybe he might be just as crazy as her. No. I actually was the one that was actually there when she went to work. Even when she came home, she really, was too tired to even deal with it. Still stayed up all night waiting for him to go to sleep, and then that's when I did all that for him, and that's what I'm trying to prove to him. I'm there for him.
I still wonder why you have to prove it. Do you guys wonder why he has to prove that?
So in this particular case, my assumption would be, because I don't know for sure, but my assumption would be, like Jamel said, they're making him prove that he is the more adequate, more stable parent, simply because in failure to protect, he didn't see the flags. He didn't see the warning signs. He didn't see what was going to happen or could have
Neither
happened.
did anyone else who was around this woman.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
But
So why
in the
is he
eyes
set
of the
apart
state,
from?
in the eyes of the state, they have to make sure that he didn't see those warning signs. And what better way to make sure that moving forward he knows those warning signs than to teach him what those warning signs are. But my bigger question, I would think, in the whole thing is, why haven't they offered him the supports to be able to get stable housing so that he can move forward with this, relative placement with this child?
And that's another thing. I don't have help. Like, let's say I got to go get a ride to go places and stuff. I'm walking, or I got bus passes for days. Like, that's the only way I can do it. But I'm working now, so it's not like I can. It's hard. I'm just saying that it's hard.
And you haven't been offered the same type of supportive services that
Nah.
we typically see.
Because I be hearing people saying that they go into the house, give them diapers and stuff like that. Nobody has said, hey, you need help? Here's this. Call that number. And, I didn't receive that. They were just like, hey, we just need to get you on that microscope, yo.
Yeah, check you out.
Yeah.
And I don't think that it's because the system or statistics are blind to the fathers. I just think when you're talking 80.4% of single-parent homes are moms, this is what they're used to dealing with, right? Dual parents or moms. So when they get a dad who enters into the picture, I think it's difficult and challenging at best.
It is.
And you think about the participants that we see coming through our doors to take parenting classes. A lot of those are mothers, and there are a few fathers that we have, but if you look at the participation, and I mean, this isn't to slam every father, but if you look at the participation between a mom who's getting ready to who has the services in their home versus the father who has to be there because the mother ended up with services, I don't see that. A lot of times I don't see the interaction with the father and the system and the father and the supports that he needs. So,
I don't see them get as much. You're right.
Right.
And this was very apparent when I met Left Field. He was in my parenting class with women and one set of co-parents. And, there's time in that class for us to share. And they're sharing where their, service plan is and what services are being placed. And then you have Left Field over here going, nope.
Right, exactly.
He wasn't being offered any of those things. And it was mind-boggling to me because, again, this is not the person who's guilty of hurting the child. And I don't know why he is being penalized for it. And, this wasn't an isolated case, folks. Like, we didn't just meet Left Field and go, oh, we love him so much, we're going to buy into his story and change the way we think about the world. There have been some other things within the past 6 months maybe that has caused us to look at this in a deeper way. For example, not able to be here today, but Dylan Rank, he's at work and has gave us permission to share his story. He had a child, lived with the mother when the child was born. They were together. He was there at the hospital. He came home just like you. He was more than 50% of the person who provided care for his son. At 10 months, him and baby mama can't work it out anymore. It's a psycho situation. And so he moves back home with his parents, and gets complete deny access to the child. He doesn't get any visitation. The mom doesn't allow it. He probably could have pushed in some ways. I don't know in what ways, because even if you call the police, if you don't have a court order, neither of you have custody, but the police can't force that other parent. So let's say me and you had a baby, and we live together, and then you move out, and then you come back and say, I want to see our kids. And the cops say, do you have an order? Does somebody have custody? Well, no, neither of us have custody, but the kids live with me.
Yeah.
Well, are you going to allow him to have visitation today because he's here to see the kid? No.
And that's wrong.
They can't force me. You have to take me to court, which is exactly what Mr. Rank did. He went through court, but there is cost attached to all of that. And there is knowing how to fill those papers out. This young man had no idea how to do any of this. It was like baptism by fire, to have to learn the process. Only to get all the way to trial in this custody case, boom, mom pops up with an attorney. Now he has an attorney. We talk to our friends in this world and say, you think we can prepare this young man to stand up and present himself against this lawyer at trial? It was laughable. No. Because you think about systems, right? In systems, there's rules, and there's language, and there's processes in every system. The court is really no different. In fact, they're probably one of the highest ones on the list.
Absolutely.
There is rules of how you present evidence. There's rules of how you talk to the judge, how you file a motion, how you present your case in court. Lawyers know this because they do it every day. To a lay person like us, we can't go into court and do what they do.
Right.
He would have been so seriously challenged. And to us, where is that fair? He who affords the lawyer wins?
Basically.
Is it not supposed to be he who deserves and has the best interests of the child? We know from reading the state statutes that the best interest of the child is always joint custody.
Right.
And in the case of toddlers and babies, still the best choice. In the case of toddlers, they don't recommend long time of frame switching back and forth like 1 week, 1 week. They recommend more of a 2-day with you, 2-day with you, 3-day with me, 2-day with you, and they alternate. But they still recommend it wherever possible. So you see this written in the state statute, and then you look at the playing field. Is it really set up that way? No. Because if Mr. Rank wouldn't have had the friends he had, meaning us sitting at the table, he would not have been able to fill those papers out.
Right.
He would not have been able to pursue the court. He wouldn't have known what he was doing.
That's kind
And
of like me. I don't even know
ultimately
what
had
I'm
to
doing.
get an attorney.
I'm just doing.
Exactly. That was one of the things that was interesting when you and I had one of our first conversations. Was I don't even know what I'm doing here. I just keep doing what they tell me to do next.
Yeah.
That does not seem fair to me as a parent when you're talking about the greatest thing we have. It's our children.
Right.
I mean, I know how you love this boy.
I love him to death.
I see it. I've seen it throughout our entire relationship. It just seems ridiculous to me. And did the system give you an attorney?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of that attorney? Good? Representing you well?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I think in most cases that's pretty fair in Calhoun County. We have pretty good family
Yeah.
court lawyers who really do fight for their clients.
I think it's interesting too, Teresa, like you'd brought up the person who has the attorney or whoever has the most money. And then I think also looking at that with the statistics that we have, I think in my own life I've seen it with my stepfather and fighting for my stepbrother. And the mother is a user, proven that, housing is an issue, finances are an issue. And even in that case, even though he has the more money, the better lawyer, I feel like the statistics, and it's almost like the stack is or the deck is like stacked kind of like in mom's favor, almost to the point where it's not even fair to say, hey, like this man has it together, he can provide, he's proven to be stable, and then still the scales still weigh towards the mother anyway.
And I know what you're saying, and I think in some cases I would say, and this is the me who's been doing this for 20 years, we would say, well, mom's the one who's been the constant. But now what we're finding out is maybe that was by mom's own choice and by pushing dad out of the picture.
Right.
Because we're seeing that quite a lot since, it's almost like when you buy a red car and then you drive around town and suddenly you're like, there's red cars everywhere, right? And you've never seen the red cars before. This kind of feels like a situation where we met you, friend, and then started looking for the red cars, and they're everywhere. And I just like to know that this is, sometimes it feels like a biased situation to me too, because when we were going through all of this data, stats, and things, they seem to hone in, and even the myths and statistics seem to hone in more on black fathers.
Yeah.
Multiple baby mothers, multiple births.
You won't see me doing that.
Right? And that
One and done.
most
Yep.
incarcerated, most have criminal backgrounds, most have nothing to do with their children.
Right.
How do you feel about that myth, being a black man who loves his son and has been there for his son since day one? You know other black men that are fathers.
Yes, I do. But I can't really speak on them. I can only speak on myself. But, I mean, I'm just gonna be blunt about it because being around the block, seeing some people, there are a few that are good, but then there's other people that I'd be like, that facade is pretty
Right.
good.
Right.
So I can only speak about myself, and I don't put on no facade. I'm straightforward with it. I'm out there. I'm here for my son. You know what I'm saying? Got to do what I got to do to get him out of that system, right into my arms, like Phoenix trying to care for his chick.
I think a lot of it too is the statistics that we read and that we see do focus in on the black father and that type of thing. But I wonder if we dug a little deeper and actually looked at all the statistics as a whole.
Yeah.
In our county, say, what kind of fathers does Calhoun County really have? Those who have been in the system and are engaged in the system. What type of fathers do we really have? So we did and it was purely by accident when we did the data for the childhood prevention for Rita.
Oh, yes.
And we were flipping through trying to find out, folks who had CPS involvement and who didn't have CPS involvement. And the numbers we found were just staggering. The statistics really matched in our county. But to me, it seems like if you have a family and there's two sets of parents that are engaged, but there's CPS involvement, if both of those family members, if the mom and the dad are both Caucasian, they have more chance to get their child back than if one or both of them are African American.
Let's go deeper with those stats, though, because you didn't really explain. What we found when we were searching, so Rita McPhail is the head of Child Abuse Prevention Fund, CAP Fund.
Okay.
And she was looking for some data about our parents for Calhoun County data. And as we're going through it, I told Val, I said, there's something wrong here about the referrals that we're getting. Because what we saw was two things. First of all, we had a higher number of black parents in our system and than we did Caucasian. But we also saw that black families were less likely to get the kids back than the Caucasian families.
That's crazy.
And we thought, okay, what's going on here? Like, what is this about? But then we also noted that our data
Is it because
matched
we're
the
aggressive?
county data, it matched the state data, and it matched the national data. They know there's an issue. And so when we were talking about this subject, we wondered the same thing. Like, is this another thing where it's bias in the system
Right.
and black fathers are just not as successful and have those stereotypes attached to it? We don't think so. We think there's also a bias within the system. And forgive me if you work for this system, because we're always willing to sit down and have a conversation. I also want viewers to know that we're not God or President Biden or anything like that. And we're
Right.
not sitting here saying, this is this. We're
Right.
saying in our corner of the world at Women's Co-op with the families that we serve, this is what we see. That's what we're saying, and I want to be clear on that.
Yeah.
And that we did pull some data that sort of kind of backs what we're saying. Val has some, Kayla has some, we all have data, right?
Yep, I got it right here.
So we're not trying to bash the system here, and we're not trying to bash people who work for the system because they're our friends. We advocate for families together, so we're not saying that. What we're saying is that sometimes systems can have this bias embedded in them, and we think this might be the case here.
Yeah.
And we wonder how much of this data, like where the story and the fact behind the data, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like, yes, 80.4% of custodial parents that are single are mothers. But have you talked to any of the fathers in that situation to see if there's another Mr. Rank or another left field or another situation like that? Take us to close with your thoughts on this subject, left field.
Well, knowing that, some people might think of us as like, I think it is like the way that they're calling us biased, because they calling it bias is because we're aggressive type of a culture. Evidently, you can see it on like the music and stuff like that we do. But I think they shouldn't even look at it like that. They should just look at it as we're just same as everybody else. We bleed the same way, and go through it that way instead of like, oh, he's African American. Oh, so that means he likes to have guns or da 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 da. I'm talking about all that. Man, no. Come on. We proper. We can be proper. There's a lot of black folks out here that's real proper. And then, like I said, I'm not going to speak for all of them. There's a lot of them that's not. But, yeah.
And it's not asking the questions, right? Oh, Jamel, he didn't sign the birth certificate. He didn't even want to be a dad.
Right.
Did you bother to ask if he was permitted to sign that birth certificate?
I asked her, let me sign it. She kept saying, I will let you in a minute. Never got to it. That I will let you in a minute was a whole year.
Right? And did anybody ask you why you didn't sign the birth certificate?
Nope.
Did anybody ask you, do you see your son regularly?
Nope.
No one asked
Nope.
you any of those questions.
No,
did
it's
they?
just an assumption.
That's an assumption like, oh, yeah, he
You're
ain't
just
doing nothing.
an absent father.
Yeah, he probably ain't doing nothing. No, I'm doing everything.
Right.
I'm doing everything I can.
Same in Mr. Rank's case. Questions that he was asked about, well, now that you've had this long period of time, 4 months to be exact, that you haven't had a relationship with your son, we can't just give you your son.
Right.
We have to lead up to this. Well, never mind that during those whole 4 months, he was begging the system, the police, the courts, the mother's family, he was begging everybody to be able to see this child. No relief to it. You're in the system and you have to go through the process. But then it takes me 4 months to go through that process, and you fault me for not seeing my son for 4 months. just seems ridiculous to me.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But you're going to help us change the world, right?
Yes, it's going to be great.
We're going to do it, right?
Yes.
Right. Everybody's hands in. Thanks, Battle Creek. This has been a subject that I think needs to be discussed, and I think maybe we need to discuss it even further as a community. So if you're interested in discussing that, we have a website, we have emails. If you don't like me and Val, you can email Kayla, you can email any of us you want to. And we'd love to discuss this further. We'd also love to hear your opinion. What do you think about this subject matter? Thanks, and good night.